never try to memorize unless it's short notice. I only practice until it becomes memorized and simply comes out automatically. I just use repetition. If I try to memorize and try to force the memory, after the show it goes away. But if I can put it in my muscle memory, it stays longer. Several of the singers mentioned this, and I think that that's kind of really important because I know, at least when we're learning, muscle memory is part of it, especially as we're learning to fix technique and stuff. And the other thing that stood out to me was Alan Held, who said, memorizing for a singer is easier to me than just learning dialogue. We have the music that helps us with memorization. Take away the music and the words become harder to keep in your mind. Memorize the two together and it's much easier. And I think that's also really important because of how much we analyze our music and the interpretation of what we're singing to see how that comes together, and I think that helps with memorization.
Continuing on to that, just general keys of memorization, Melissa just mentioned like drilling and repeating. That's something that a lot of these singers mention, and not just the drilling and repetition, but like in order to make something like memorization muscle memory, it's part of incorporating it daily, and a lot of these singers talk about that. Let's see. Ana Maria Martinez talked about just like daily habits, like that she's waking up in the morning before she has her morning coffee. She's, going through a song, or before she goes to bed at night, she's like repeating a line of text she's having trouble with. And that's something that is really key, and just the general logic, like just making it logical makes memorizing easier. And that's something that all of these singers have seen and touched on.
Going back to like repetition, all of the singers in the book say that repetition is like important. Like if you don't repeat it, then you lose it, or if you go away from it for a week, then you'll forget a lot of the things that you thought you had memorized. Christine Girk said putting a pen to paper helps. Somebody else, I forget who, said red ink, because red is a color that's like significant and is scientifically proven to help you remember things better. And also, repetition is important, but if you work on a piece too much in a short span of time, you can it's kind of like overkill. So like work on it for 2 hours and then put it away and do a little bit each day rather than cramming it all, especially since a lot of the people said even if they have a photographic memory, that you shouldn't start memorizing it to the last week, because if you rely on that, then you could forget it when you're on stage, and it's just a train wreck. Dimitri Pitas said that he starts at the end and works backward, because like if you start at the beginning, then the beginning is really solid. Then as you get to the end, you don't slack off, but you don't know it as well as the beginning part. So sort of working on it out of order for the sake of knowing each part individually as well as the others. And Thomas Hansen said something similar to that, like memorizing it by breaking it up and like analyzing each part of a piece and seeing how it all fits together, so that when you put it together as a whole, you know each piece really well and it sort of flows better in itself.
Okay. So both Nicole Cabell and David Daniels said that they spend a lot of their time looking at their scores, whether it's them just playing it like their part on the piano, or when they're listening to somebody else sing it, just staring at the score like repetition, repetition, repetition. And that's the same thing that I do, but it's not all about memorizing the words. It's staring at the score so that I can memorize note values and where I put my breaths. And David Daniels says that, no, that's what he said, and that it's more than just words on page. Okay. And then Simon Keenly says that he doesn't think of memorizing as an option. He says that it's a fundamental requirement, and that, more specifically, he says, it may be wearing at times, but so long as the excitement to get on with the role outweighs the drudgery of the daily memorizing, then it will all be well. And what I took from that was, don't think about how